Welcome to the Life Lnxx Podcast, a Latina podcast for the modern cultura. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, Peruana, California native, structural engineer, mother, and your amiga for all things Latina. Here we honor the women who navigate multiple cultures, both aquí and allá, and somewhere in between, providing that safe place for you to speak your truth, celebrate la cultura, and find belonging in this comunidad. Join us every Wednesday on your favorite streaming platform to listen to your new amigas as they share their journeys of lessons learned, barriers they overcome, and the joys of living life with pure authenticity. Encuentras your voice and discover the life meant for you. Hola, chicas. Welcome to the Life Lnxx Podcast. On this Wednesday, December 6th, we are entering the last month of the year, hoping it's been a good year for you, but knowing there are still good days ahead. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, here with you every week to introduce you to yet another amazing mujer who could be your next best friend by the end of the episode. So grateful to have you here this week for our Pod Club episode of Yaqueline Martinez, chef, author, and founder of the Aboriginal Cuban catering company, Yaqueline y su sabor cubano. We got to know this beautiful woman last week in her full-length episode, and wow, did she not bring the joy and vivacity that represents our cultura as she shared her journey from leaving her beloved homeland of Cuba to tearfully healing her homesickness by writing her memoir, turned cookbook, turned business. And this Pod Club episode is all about the business today and how to fuel your mindset to think big money. If you missed it, no worries. This episode stands alone and will still include Yaqueline's wise words of advice for any of you wanting to start your own business. Now, this is our bilingual episode. So if you would like to follow up on securing your Spanish understanding, then hop on over to our YouTube channel at Life Lnxx Podcast. That's LNXX for the English translation and see for yourself the sassy beauty of Yaqueline Martinez. We learned a lot from Yaqueline last week about starting your own small business, but that wasn't the focus of the episode. And that is the beauty of the podcast. In the full-length episodes, we come to know the amazing mujer personally. She shares her intimate stories graciously so that we can resonate with the story and bring compassion and empathy into the vibe. And the extra is that each person, by telling their own personal story, also shares these gems of knowledge, lessons learned, advice, and encouragement for all of us to benefit. In Yaqueline's episode, we learn about her heart-wrenching story of leaving her friends and family in Cuba to come to the U.S. and follow her bigger dream. But she didn't even know what that was until she spilled her heart out onto pages to create what she thought would be her memoir, healing her homesickness for her beloved Cuba. But when a woman she knew to be a fireball in transactions took a look at it, she instantly knew that Yaqueline could turn her memoir into a cookbook by adding her mother's recipes into the story. And the cookbook could be sold, and then, wow, that became the cornerstone of her business, Yaqueline y su sabor cubano. Here she is, sharing the memory with us last week.
Todo eso empezó en el 2016 con la ayuda de una organización que se llama Life Lnxx. Allí conocí en una clase que se llama Comienza un negocio con confianza o Start Smart. Fue una clase que marcó el antes y el después, Consuelo, de lo que es mi negocio hoy en día. Esa clase me hizo hacer como un vision board de lo que era mi negocio, dónde estaban mis números, dónde estaban mis proyecciones financieras, cómo eran las recetas, qué era lo que estaba yo cobrando, cuál era el precio de venta final que tenía el producto, el plato, puede ver, y me di cuenta que yo invertía $300 y cobraba $300. Yo no estaba ganando. Y de eso se encargó la muchacha que dio la clase, se llama Viridiana Ponce, ahora actualmente es mi consejera. Ayer estuvimos en meeting juntas, buscando, mirando los números, porque como ahora yo tengo un sistema que se llama QuickBook, que puede monitorear mi finanza. Estamos mirando estamos final del año y ya es hora de estar mirando cómo van esos números. Y con solo de 5,000 pesos que hacíamos normalmente en el año, llegamos a 46,000.
Now, what we really learned here is that we may not be able to see our own worth and the value it can bring us monetarily. In Yaqueline's case, it took another person to see the value that Yaqueline had in the memories and knowledge of her life in Cuba. As Yaqueline stated, she never intended it to be a cookbook. Yet that cookbook is the tinder that ignited her catering business and fueled her success. But again, she emphasizes, she did not do it alone. Yaqueline shared how necessary it is to be under the guidance of an organization, a mentor, or a consultant who can help frame your ideas into a business, especially the business plan, and teach you how to envision greater earnings for your business. Here she shares a personal story of being in class at Renaissance Entrepreneurial Center here in the San Francisco Bay Area, an organization focused on mentoring underrepresented populations as they begin their entrepreneurial journey.
Y muy curioso porque en la clase de plan de negocio que la dio mi maestra Susana Gama, que también es una de las personas que quiero mucho, no solo porque ayudó a visualizar y a crecer los números de la manera que lo hizo. Ella hizo una historia de una de sus clientas que su clienta estaba ganando 50,000 al año. En aquel tiempo tenía muchas casas que limpiar aquí y allá. Y ella le dijo, tienes que pensar en grande, tú tienes que poner 2 ceros, 3 ceros más de lo grande que tienes que pensar. Entonces, de 50,000, 2 ceros más serían 500,000. Un número exagerado. Y la señora puso unos planes de venta y cambió las estrategias que tenía y perdió la mitad de los clientes. Pero un año después ganó el triple de esos clientes y comerciales. Y entonces no fueron 500,000, fueron 800,000
Wow.
lo que ella hizo la cliente en ese año.
Isn't that amazing? How often do we just settle for the lowest branch of earning for ourselves? Doesn't this just poke you a little bit? Why don't we tend to think bigger for ourselves? Now, maybe we don't have the knowledge. After all, that's what being an entrepreneur is all about. And maybe we don't know what resources are available to us, which really is the easiest to overcome. But there's one more component. Maybe it's the cultura that teaches us never to ask for help, and instead to help others before ourselves. Now this one, that's a big one. And this may come up when we want a raise, but won't ask for one, or burn ourselves out for trying to raise our children and rise in our careers and be the social manager for everyone in our lives. But let's not digress. That's a full other week of episodes. So let's get back to where we were with revving up enthusiasm to start your own business. So now that you have that idea stirring in your imagination, and you've learned that every entrepreneur needs to rely on the help and knowledge of others, are you ready to get your business off the ground and into those stratospheric numbers that Yaqueline was talking about? I hear a resounding yes. Come on, let's do it. Well, here's Yaqueline describing what it takes to start a business and how simple and low cost it can be to do it properly, both for the legal regulations and those money earnings.
En mi caso, ahora después de la visión que ya he tenido en todos estos años, me gustaría que la persona que va a empezar un negocio de cualquier tipo, primero que todo, que tenga las ganas, la pasión de querer hacerlo y luego que comience a pensar a planear. Por ejemplo, si todavía no conoce una organización que ayude a las personas a empezar un negocio, primero que lo empiece a anotar. Anote un plan de negocio donde ese plan tiene que tener un programa de mercadeo, tiene que tener un programa competitivo, tiene que tener un programa de números, de proyecciones, tiene que tener un programa de lo que ellos van a brindar a la comunidad. Y cuando ellos tengan ese plan hecho, entonces que a partir de ese plan comiencen, porque fíjate que empezar un negocio en los Estados Unidos, Consuelo, no es algo que es difícil y no es algo que tú vas a llevar para abrir un negocio meses, ni años, ni semanas. No es nada burocrático aquí eso. Tú tienes un negocio y tú le quieres poner a tu negocio, por ejemplo, Consuelo Podcast, y usted se va a la ciudad de donde usted vive y pues te dan una planilla que son solamente 2 páginas. Debes de llenar con el nombre te dicen cómo es el nombre de tu negocio, tu nombre, cómo son los números que vas a poner y qué sé yo. Y entrega esas 2 páginas y en 15 días te llega a tu casa tu permiso de la ciudad. Luego vas a registrar tu logo. Quizás quieras hacerlo a tu manera y quieras contratar un equipo, pero hay links que te enseñan, te ponen varios logos, tú lo coges, lo cambias, le pones el nombre tuyo y ya tienes un logo. No es nada difícil eso. Hacer el ficticio business name tampoco es difícil. Ahí tú vas al City Hall de la ciudad donde tú vives y dices, yo quiero, mire, con esta licencia que me dio la ciudad, quiero hacer el ficticio business name. Ellos te llenan la planilla, es una planilla de 1 página. Y luego sales de allí y el periódico está en la oficina que está al lado o atrás. Vas al periódico, te ponen tu negocio por 1 mes en el periódico. Si nadie reclama tu nombre, el nombre del negocio es tuyo, que no es algo que es difícil. Es un proceso de 2, 3 meses y tu negocio ya está formalizado. Y mientras tanto ya tú estás vendiendo, porque eso también les recomiendo. Que tiene un negocio de textilera no va a esperar a tener todos los permisos para poner el negocio en marcha. Tiene que empezar a vender en el flea market o sentarse en un pasito afuera de su casa o poner una mesita, enseñar sus tejidos o enseñar su maquinaria de lo que hace o sus business card o cómo es un diseño gráfico para que la gente empiece a entender de qué va, de qué tú estás haciendo. Porque si vas a esperar a tenerlo todo, nunca lo vas a hacer. Yo me gusta que planeen en un papel, en un manuscrito lo que quieren y ahí empiecen a ponerlo en práctica. Y ahí tú te das cuenta, bueno, no me funcionó hoy porque vendía porque no tenían que vender, o me va a funcionar mañana porque voy a cambiar la estrategia de venta, o porque voy a ponerle otro precio, o porque este precio no. Tú sabes, tienes que tratar, y para tratar hay que intentarlo desde la primera. Eso es lo que yo recomiendo.
And just for some extra encouragement, did you know that in the latest data from the U.S. Labor Bureau, Latinas, yes, us Latinas, were the largest and fastest growing population of entrepreneurs in 2021. So you have plenty of company in getting your business started and lots of people in the comunidad ready to support your business. Because after all, the Latina community has a $2 trillion buying power. But not just for anyone. We're dedicated and loyal to the businesses that recognize our power, our loyalty, and our savviness in knowing a good thing when we see it, hear it, taste it, you name it. I cannot wait to see your new brands and companies start up in the new year. And in the meantime, let's go out and support all the existing Latina businesses this holiday season so that they can reach their high-earning goals. On this podcast alone, you have authors, cosmetic brands, coffee brands, travel businesses, life coaches, food purveyors, artists, you name it. And I can't wait to have more and more of the entrepreneurs on this podcast to illuminate your brilliance. Now, next week, we have a very special guest who is an advocate for all Latinas after being raised by his mother and abuelita. Yep, you got it. Right after our first bilingual episode, we have our first Latino sharing his story of self-discovery in the cultura and creating a brilliant platform for the Latinx comunidad in the film industry. A much-needed space, as we have learned most recently from Eva Longoria and America Ferreira. Joining us next week is Vega Montañez, an award-winning performer, writer, and producer born in New York City to Dominican and Puerto Rican parents who raised him in Providence, Rhode Island. His passion for creative writing started as a little boy, but was shattered at 9 years old when he was accused of plagiarizing. Thankfully, after much self-reflection, he rose into his forte, writing 24 scripts in the last 2 years. His first featured film, The Hurt We Share, was purchased by Dame Dash Studios and is streaming on Tubi. And within the next 6 months, he will have 3 more films available, including the highly anticipated Nico and the star-studded action film, The Burden of 9 Lives, which just premiered in Midtown Manhattan a few weeks ago. Vega is the most warm, empathetic human I have had the honor to get to know. His humor, his vulnerability, and honesty just come streaming through in his most authentic self. And although he loves being behind the camera, this is one person we love to hear front and center. Get to know more about Vega before his episode comes out next week on his Instagram profile at WhatUpVega. So join us next week as we introduce you to Vega Montañez as he shares his journey from singer-songwriter to scriptwriter, director, and now producer in the film industry and the opportunities it holds for all of the comunidad. This episode is empowering, provocative, and joyous in realizing the powerful platforms that already exist for our stories to be told under the compassionate guidance of Vega Montañez. Remember to check out our social media on Instagram at Life Lnxx Podcast to keep up with our latest episodes, and you can immediately access the most current podcast episodes on any of your streaming channels through our link tree that you can find on our Instagram profile in the LinkedIn bio. There's also a tab for our YouTube videos, as well as an opportunity to schedule a session with me to chat about your own brilliant journey and consider being a guest on the Life Lnxx Podcast. I love meeting you all, so this is really exciting, and I can't wait to have you schedule a time with me. Share this podcast with your friends and family and encourage them to share their journey as we continue to be the voice for our Latina comunidad to speak their truth, share their self-discovery journey, and celebrate their successes. Encuentras your voice. Step into your truth, ladies. Ciao.
Really appreciate the time you take to rate and review the podcast. Get the backstory and what you've heard here today and reach out on our website at lifelnx.com. That's LNXX, because it's about time, it's about us. Stay in the groove on our social media at Life Lnxx and get ready to make your move, ladies.